mystery and horror, the air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make. He's alive! He's alive!
Live. Welcome, all you monster fiends, and thank you for joining us for another deep dive, factoid-filled episode exploring Hollywood's most famous monsters. I am your mistress of ceremonies, Sam, and I am joined, as always, by Dan from Bleeding Marvelous. She's that way. Say hello, Dan.
Cat dead. Details later.
Oh no.
Hello, Dan.
Hi, Dan. I can't believe you just said that. Happy 1 year of this.
I would have baked a cake, but I didn't.
I would have wore a party hat, but there's no way it's getting over the headphones and the hair. It's not happening. But oh my gosh, 1 year of monsters.
Yeah, we've had to put it up with each other for 1 year, my nonsense and your nonsense, and I think we've done pretty well for an entire year.
Yeah, I feel like our crazy matches, so we're all good. We're all good. Well, all you lucky people in the chat, I can't. This is weird saying it because like this is normally Thursday night and no one's here but me and you.
Exactly.
But we are joined by a lot of people in the chat. Hi everyone. You will not succeed tonight in trying to make me laugh. Just putting that out there. I am going to be 100% professional.
Okay, I won't.
Yeah.
I'm running
Right.
on severe lack of sleep and a very, very busy 2 days at Liverpool Con, so my brain is befuddled before blah, 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 blah. So that's what you're getting out of me today.
I love it. I love it. It's just going to make total sense with the whole episode that we're doing. So look at you repping your t-shirt. Look at that.
Hell on shirts. Hell on shirts, Jess and Robbie.
Brilliant shirt. Very, very jealous. Right. We'll do the disclaimer and then we're going to get into this week's episode. So, everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us in the comments section, our Facebook pages, or the Discord, where we can have an open discussion. But what we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong. We can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behavior out of nerdism.
Don't be a dick. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
There you go. Oh, right. This is going to be interesting. What an interesting one to do for the live.
It's something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting. So, Re-Animator is a 1985 horror comedy loosely based on the 1922 H.P. Lovecraft serial, I can't say this word, novella? Herbert West Re-Animator, directed by Stuart Gordon, starring Jeffrey Combs, Bruce Abbott, David Gale, and the beautiful Barbara Crampton. Death is just the beginning, as Monsters of North brings you Re-Animator.
Dun, dun, dun. I'm not going to do the psycho music again. Yeah, it sounds like X-Files every time I do it, so I'm just not going to do it anymore.
On watch, were you waiting for the do 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 to kick in because it was really annoying us because it kind of happened and then it went away and I'm like, you tease.
Well, I feel sorry for the composer because I saw something that said that he got rinsed for this because he wanted it to be more of a homage.
Yes,
but it was a blatant rip-off.
It was. It was. The idea was that the opening was going to be the homage to Psycho, and there's music in the movie that is a homage to Vertigo.
Yeah, it's a massive Hitchcock thing going off. I don't know why, but
in a Lovecraft movie.
Yeah, choices, people, choices.
Where do we start with Re-Animator? Where do we start? Do we go Do we do what we did last week with Patrick and we talk about what we know and then the characters and then the movie? I think, yeah, shall we?
Yeah, we'll give it a crack. And if you don't like it, tough.
I was going to say what you're going to do, but you could just stop listening
you'll
to
give
us.
us abuse down there, I'm sure. But yeah.
Yeah. Right. So, where am I at? My writing is so small, by the way, again. This is me writing in the dark, writing really fast. Oh, yes, that's right. The opening, the actual whole thing. So, Re-Animator is, obviously, we know it as a movie, but that is not how it was intended to start.
Nope.
It's sorry, something's just gone wrong with my YouTube.
Yep, mine as well.
Hopefully we're all okay. Are we okay?
I don't really know. Mine's just buffering massively, and then it's just saying, "Are you a monster?"
Are you a monster? Never mind. I feel yeah, it's back up. It's good. It's good. Anyways,
there we go.
Anywho's, I feel like if something were to happen, there'd be a voice in the background telling us that something was happening. So, yes, the whole opening of this wasn't meant to be a movie at all. It was going to be a stage show.
Yes, it was going to be a stage show. And then with Stuart Gordon's background being in theatre and the fact that every single actor they'd hired was a theatre actor,
yeah,
I thought it would be better to make it a theatre production. So,
and then that kind of fell through. And then it was going to be a TV show.
Yes.
But the way that they wrote it was how TV would be today.
Yeah.
So you would have like nearly 20 odd episodes for series 1. And at the time in 85, in the 80s, it's like, oh, that's too much.
Yeah. And they pitched it as 30-minute episodes.
Yeah.
And they were like, nobody watches 30-minute episodes. Why would you want a 30-minute episode? And they were like, because we can take each short story from within each section and then break it down and spend a little bit of time and maybe spread it out over 2 or 3 episodes rather than just doing one part for every story, one episode for every story. And the PBS went, oh, they pitched it to PBS. PBS were really quite happy. They were like, oh, we might do this. And then they saw the level of horror that was actually involved in it. And they went, not for us. No, thank you.
Oh, well. It then went into the movie status.
Yes.
And that's where it stayed. The movie is, when I said earlier, it was loosely based on the H.P. Lovecraft. It's because it's, oh, let me get this right. And no, Michael, thank you, Mike, told us the other day it was the first and second book is the first movie. Or have I...
Yeah, first and second, because you got The Bride of Re-Animator.
That's it.
And then there's the god-awful thing that came out in 2005, which does have Jeff in it, but I can't bring myself to even mention that thing. So it's like Beyond Re-Animator, I think it was called. It's something along those lines.
It can stay that way. 24 gallons of blood used in this movie. Used quite well as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I was listening, I watched the behind the scenes today. I don't know if you saw that on YouTube. There's a behind the scenes called, oh God, what was it called? I did write it down. Can't read my own writing, but yeah, it's some Latin word.
Some Latin.
But, some Latin word, some really, scribble. And basically, they explained about like all the special effects in it as well, which I know you would have loved. But like how they did certain things in there with like hamburger meat and like offal and all sorts of stuff, and it was a miserable time for the actors and actresses, but they loved it at the same time. When they were all being interviewed, they're like, "Yep, I wouldn't change a single thing." Like it was miserable for 18 days solid shooting. Yeah, miserable the whole time.
It works though for the movie that it is, and I don't. Re-Animator cannot be taken as a serious movie. It is a comedy.
Yeah.
And there is bits in it where I was like physically wetting myself laughing at it. Anth didn't find the funny side of it. He watched it with us, but he was watching it for one thing and one thing only.
Boobs.
Boobs. A lot of boobs.
Maybe that's why I was watching it. I mean, why not?
Yeah. Well, the movie, like it is meant to they tried to stay as faithful as they could to H.P. Lovecraft's work, but in actual fact, they were more closer to the Frankenstein story than they were to Lovecraft in the end.
Yeah. Something to do with the fact that Lovecraft can be a little bit of a, what's the word we're looking for? Racist.
Something I learned yesterday, actually, because
Yeah.
as I keep telling everyone, I am an Edgar Allan Poe girl.
Mm.
Lovecraft never, until I had to read up about it for this, never crossed my mind.
Yeah, he's I mean, don't get me wrong, the guy is a genius with the story, Innsmouth, Fish People, Re-Animator. Like, he was way ahead of his time, you know, even writing the Necronomicon. The guy, as a storyteller, absolutely amazing. But yeah, personally, he's a dick. So it's like one of those things where you're just like, oh, do we, you know, I think it's one of those cases, like, we have that discussion quite a lot. Can you look past
Yeah,
the person to appreciate
the work.
and if you can, that's great. With him, you can. I feel like the legacy of his work has gone on to produce some amazing movies, like inspired by not just this one, but like so many more films. So,
and TV. What was it? Orange County?
Lovecraftian County, was it, or a country? Lovecraft Country. I'm sure it was something like that with Jonathan
Majors.
Yeah,
No.
with Kang in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, Kang. Yes, him in it. Yes, that's the first time I'd ever seen him. I found that quite interesting, but again, never really made us want to go and delve into much of Lovecraft. I mean, even Lovecraft himself didn't even like writing this book. He just did it before the money.
It's fair.
Yeah. Where am I at? Sorry, the YouTube keeps throwing us. It's buffering again.
No, mine's all right at the minute.
No, it'll go off again. Oh, gosh darn it.
Yep.
Please.
Chris is on buffer. Lee's on buffer. Dave's on buffer.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry, guys. Don't really know
Sorry.
what's going on.
No, me neither. We are still here.
Sorry.
Meh.
Sorry.
What you gonna do? We're live. It's okay.
Yeah. Ooh, the problems are going live.
This is why Monsters is pre-recorded.
I'm getting easily distracted by this as well. I keep reading the comments and I'm like,
yeah.
Stop commenting.
No, we're all good. I'm just going to keep on continue. I'm going to keep on. And
yeah.
Paul said he doesn't know what's going on. It's okay. It's fine.
Don't worry about it. It's all good. Did you know the Miskatonic Medical School at the beginning that they use, the shot of the outside of the medical school, that is also Cyberdyne from Terminator 2.
No.
They use the same building. Yeah. So not only can you reanimate corpses, you can now make robots in there. So, you know, let's appreciate.
I didn't see that at all while I was doing my notes.
Yeah. Crazy.
No. Oh, fun fact. This one made me laugh incredibly out loud. In Japan, it's called Zombio, which means drifting spirits.
That makes this film sound really nice, doesn't it? Like, it's giving it an ethereal kind of like.
When in actual fact,
not so nude much. People, just nudeness. Naked zombies everywhere.
I know a lot of people are having a few problems. I'm so sorry. I'm sure it'll figure itself out. Hold on. Because Chris is saying his is fine.
Mine's fine.
Mine isn't, but hey ho, I'll just leave it for now. What was I going to say? That has proper thrown us. There's a reason why we pre-record.
I do know something. I do know there's a certain massive pop star, and I wouldn't call him pop. I don't really know what to call him. Music star. He's sadly not with us anymore. But the director of photography on this film was working with this pop star. And he came running up to him one day and said to him, is it true you worked on Re-Animator? And the guy was like, yeah, you know, it was the craziest like 2-3 weeks of my entire life. and turned out it was David Bowie. This is David Bowie's favorite film.
Yes, I
So
did read that.
insane. He got it was a comedy though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
David Bowie got it was a comedy, but they were playing it straight the whole time. And that's the hardest thing about this. When you try and explain to somebody, it is absolutely nuts. And you're like, don't go into it thinking it's a horror movie, a traditional horror movie. Whilst you get all your guts and your blood and your gore,
Yeah.
and you know, on that side of it, you're getting everything. They deliver everything, and they go above and beyond. But it's more of a, it's just dark humor. So it's like, it's right up my alley.
It is. It's just the way that Jeffrey Combs plays it. Let's talk about Jeffrey Combs and his character of Herbert West, because I first was introduced to him in Frighteners.
Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah, Frighteners was my first introduction to him, and the facial expressions on that man is just mwah. Like,
mine was House on Haunted Hill.
which one?
The remake.
Obviously not the Vincent Price one.
He was the doctor in the dungeon, the doctor downstairs that was the crazy doctor.
Oh, is this the one with
Jeffrey Rush?
Jeffrey Rush, that's it, yes. Not seen it.
I actually really like that as a remake. Not a fan of Famke Jensen. I never know how to pronounce the name. Do apologise. But you know, Jean Grey, don't really like her as an actress, really. But she was the only downside to that film. It had James Masters in it, Spike from Buffy. It had Ali Lata. When you start watching it, it's like the guys that became really famous of the era. It seems like all of those faces, like all of the people in that were of that era. So it's very of its time. But I will say that Jeffrey Rush does a bloody good Vincent Price.
Yeah, I have. Don't get us wrong. I've seen clips of it. I've just not seen the movie. It's in its entirety. I love the Vincent Price one though.
Yeah,
I fucking love that film. When him and his missus are going back and forth with each other, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's some good comebacks. But yeah, his facial expressions are like no other, and even in this, like, he's so hard to read. There's moments where I think, oh Christ, he's batshit crazy. Oh no, wait. He's a friend. He's a good friend. Nope. He's batshit crazy once again.
He's a man of science. The curiosity, I think, it's everything. He has like a sense of childlike wonder about stuff. Like in the opening scene, you see a bunch of people marching down the hallway, and then you hear all this like struggling coming from behind a door. They bash the door in, and you see Herbert standing over this guy on the floor, and he's holding a needle. Now, they never really explain if he tried to inject him whilst he was alive, or he tried to reanimate him after the guy died. But they don't really sort of. Did they say that he killed him?
There's an implication there that he did, because he was in the room with them. I wrote notes as this movie was going on.
Oh, right, okay.
And so, why did they have to check if he was dead? Clearly, they checked for a pulse. Clearly, he was gone.
Well, his head being in on three different walls might have had something to do with that.
Massively. Did you notice the name of the doctor who he was working for?
I don't think I did. I think that one passed me by.
Hans Gruber.
Oh, for God's sake. How did that pass me by? Oh, I'm annoyed with myself now.
I had to go back and listen, because I said to Ant, I was like, Hans Gruber, where do I know the name? You can't say Hans Gruber without Hans Gruber. I was like, where do I know that name from? They're like, it's fucking Die Hard. And then I looked, and this came before Die Hard, so it's Die Hard who's the thief, not this.
Alan Rickman, shame on you.
Shame on you. But yeah, the guy, the doctor who he was working for was Hans Gruber.
Hans Gruber.
Yeah.
But yeah, I the bit they were explaining about in that opening sequence was when they first did that, because this was the only scene they had to reshoot. this opening scene,
Right.
because when they filmed the entire film, they had no explanation of why Herbert just turned up at the school.
Yeah.
So they wanted a bit. They wanted to show a pre reason.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how they did the special effects. At this point, it was the last special effects sequence they'd done, so they felt like they'd really got themselves into a swing of it. And they were talking about how they sculpted the face of Hans Gruber, and how they put little bladders in his eyes. And so you had some guy under the camera that was blowing into a big straw that was then overinflating the eyes. So when they were bulging, and then they had little, like, they blew it up so hard that they exploded. And then that's when that whole sequence happened, when he falls over. But they said they went to the meat market to get like bits of like ground meat. They were using like mince.
That's kind of like along the same lines as Peter Jackson did in Brain Dead. A lot of meat.
There's a lot of offal in this film.
The smell would have been unbearable. Like, bravo and hats off to the actors who had to put up with that. Bravo to David Gale, because David Gale probably went through the worst of it all.
Yeah. They said that he really did struggle. He really did, but never
David Gale is a goddamn fucking hero in this movie, and we will get into it in a bit. But
it gives me the ick.
Yeah, he gives me the ick for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
Like, because he's meant to give you the ick.
Yes.
But you do need an introduction to Herbert, because it would be a bit random, like, oh, this guy's just come, and it's like there's no explanation to him whatsoever, because it's a teaching school. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for somebody to come in to this teaching school. So I do like the fact that you introduced him in that way, and you knew that there was something off about him. You weren't quite sure, but there was something definitely off about him. Bruce Abbott, who plays Dan, I thoroughly enjoyed his whole performances. Barbara Compton, on the other hand, love her dearly, but my God, did she annoy the shit out of us majority of this film.
It's the over the top hyper.
Dan, stop! Dan, stop!
That's the problem. It's they do it in most of the 80s movies. To be fair, they play the woman to be so highly strung and neurotic in these situations, and it's like, how dare you have a level-headed woman in a situation? And so old Babs was playing it like that's what they did. I mean, she does better in other movies like Chopping Mall, and moving after that, she does a hell of a lot better in she doesn't really get like too neurotic. I mean, she has her moments, but this, it feels like it was just over the top every now and again. Like when Herbert wanted to move in, and she was like, "No, how dare you!" and she was waving her arms around. I'm like, all right, Babs, he's only just said, like,
I know
he's renting his room out.
Hey, when he pulled that money clip out, Dan's eyes just went, yes, thank you. I'll take that.
Yeah.
The cat. The cat.
Yeah.
I'm glad I knew the fact.
Yeah.
Before the actual thing. You could tell.
Yeah.
You could clearly tell. If you don't know what we are referring to, then there is a scene. So Dan has a cat, and the cat is referenced, which is great. So you obviously know about said cat. And Herbert's moved in, and he's obviously taken up the basement.
Yeah.
Because that's what he was very interested in, so he can do all of his experiments. And cat goes missing. Cat now. Before we get into the whole thing, do you believe Herbert or not?
What the
cat was dead already?
The cat was what Herbert said was that the cat was found, and it had suffocated because the bin had fallen on it, and his head was trapped in a jar, and it suffocated. No, I do not believe that. Herbert, he's not.
Lie better.
I was going to say, he's not one to really care. He would kill them first, as we see. So I think it's a case of him possibly just trying to break them into his process. It's
Yeah.
his way of just sort of testing the water and seeing if Dan can
Hack it, basically.
Yeah.
I'll kill your cat as initiation. There you go.
Yeah.
The cat perishes. And when Dan finds it, he opens a refrigerator to said kitty cat in the fridge. And it's real, guys. The cat in the fridge is real.
Yeah, that's the special effects said it wasn't their proudest moment, but there was one in the neighborhood, and it was just easier to use that for the 10 seconds that they needed it for than sculpt a whole one and make one. But it served its purpose. It was there, then the fridge was shut, and it was gone.
And that was it, it's gone. And then you move to I'm guessing puppetry, because I don't know. I tried to have a look to see how they did the cat, because to be in honesty, I thought it was pretty good how they did it. Now I was like, is it stop motion? Is that how they're doing it, or is it puppetry, or is it animatronics?
Animatronics they didn't have the budget for, so the majority of it was puppetry. When it's on Herbert's back, when the cat has a moment and it goes onto Herbert's back, they actually sewed a puppet onto his shirt. So when he's flinging around, it looks like the cat's got its claws dug in, but it's not. It's just sewn to his shirt. So it's like well and truly on there. The rest of it was puppetry. Yeah, it was the special effects guys with their hands over the shoulder or through the table, especially with the bit where they beat the ever living crap out of this cat, and then
the poor kitty.
They reanimate it. Like Herbert tells Dan, I'm going to you don't believe me, I'm going to show you. And this cat is laying practically in two pieces on the table, and he gives it a jab, and all you hear is awful cat noises. And why is it making that noise? I'm like, because it's in pain, you fool. I mean, you're a doctor, surely you can tell that's not
well, what is the line he says? You have to, when you're being born again, it's painful.
That's it. Yeah.
Get fucked, Herbert. Like, it may be painful for the person who's birthing you, but you feel fuck all.
But that's when Dan turns around and says to Herbert, "Why didn't you tell me you found the cat?" And that's when he turned around and when he said, "Dead cat." I'll leave you a note that said, "Dead cat." Details later.
I wrote that down. Dead cat. Details later.
He said that wouldn't have been, and that's the bit that made me laugh, because that's the kind of note that Rob would leave me or something. Do you know what I mean? It would be short, concise, and to the point.
To the point.
No sugarcoating it. But and I just thought that was cracking, because he the way he delivered that. What would you have liked me to have left on this note? Dead cat. Details later. And it was just deadpan. I was like, yeah, love that.
I thought it was brilliant. There's a lot of Herbert's lines that we'll go through, because like there's some cracking ones. But we get to meet the dean and the doctor. Can't remember what Dr. Hill. That was it. Dr. Hill. Now there's a bit in this. Dr. Hill's character is almost slightly weird, and there is a reason. I know he's weird, but his characteristics are weird, and it's something that they had to remove. But because they did it at the last minute, there's a lot that's kept in. Mind control. Yes. So he was meant to have the ability to have mind control over people, and the writers at the end were like, it kind of doesn't work. However, the dialogue was already there, so they had to keep it in, otherwise the scene wouldn't work. Because there's bits where he talks to Barbara's character, and he gets her to do, and Herbert, he does it to Herbert, gets him to do things that he wouldn't necessarily have done unless he said. I fucking love David Gale in this movie. This man put it all on the line, and when I say all on the line, his fucking marriage on the line.
Yep, and he shaved his head.
He did.
Yeah, because I mean they couldn't afford a decent wig, so the wig that was on the heads that they sculpted of David Gale didn't match his actual hair.
Yeah.
So instead of David, just putting a wig on top of a wig, no, he shaved his head and wore a toupee for this whole thing. so it would match the wigs that were on the already made heads of him.
Yeah.
Which is commitment. That is
Oh,
insane.
100%. So when obviously the scene that we'll get to later on happens, that when there was already friction in the marriage to start with.
Mm.
And at the premiere, she blew her stack at that scene and said, I can't believe you've done this to us. In the middle of the premiere, ran out of this, and he never saw her again.
Yeah. This is what you do. Yes, yeah. This pays the bills. Thank you.
That house, darling. Because of this. Because of this. So yeah, the mind control thing was bizarre because I picked up on it when he was talking to her, but I was like, what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah. And it got amplified when he was talking to the dean later on as well. But when Stuart Gordon found David Gale for the part, he said that straight away he was like, he gives off Karloff vibes. He's 6'1", 6'2". He has the same deep voice. He's very long in the face. He's very much has the characteristics of a Karloff. He said, and that's where my mind went straight away. I was like, yeah, that's what I want. I want that kind of. Because David Gale plays American in this, but he is actually British. He's a Wimbledon boy. He was born and bred in Wimbledon in London. So yeah, it's very much the same situation with Karloff, who's British and moved to America, and America like to claim them as their own. But
I kind of get I get that vibe from him. I get it's the commitment. We all know Karloff's commitment with makeup. It's so weird. It was Jack Pierce's birthday on Friday. Our ever favorite hot glue loving makeup artist.
Yeah.
It was his heavenly birthday on the 5th, and all of his makeup's been shown obviously a lot on my pages, and I'm like, oh mate, you really put them guys through it, didn't you?
I don't know if there's enough money. It'd have to be a substantial amount of money for someone to let someone hot glue something to me. I've got to be honest. There'd have to be a level of monetary reimbursement these days to burn my
skin. Yeah, so, but I kind of get what you mean. Like he fully commits to this movie. Actually, everyone does. Yeah. Dan's a bit of a wet blanket, but I kind of feel like that's who he's meant to be, and he's very easily swayed.
Yeah. Stuart Gordon, who is the director and who started this all off, Stuart basically said that Dan, without you knowing it, is the glue for the whole movie. Everything revolves around Dan, and Dan is the last man standing. So Dan is the guy that you don't realize, because he is so wet and he is so namby-pamby, but like in the sense of that he's just okay, I'll do whatever you want kind of namby-pamby. And it was very rare to have a lead male that wasn't very dominant, because the villain here is so overly dominant in this film. Herbert is also very overly dominant, even though Herbert's not really the bad guy. He is for a very small portion of the film.
Yeah.
But then you start to realize, hang on, he's just a guy that's swept up in his own thing. He's not actually a bad guy. This guy's way worse.
Yeah, this guy's like totally worse. Like he has almost like a half God complex going on.
Yeah,
whereas David Gale, Dr. Hill, has a full-on God complex going on and is willing to steal his work. When we first see, like we see Herbert's work a little bit with the cat and get an idea as to what it can do. Yeah. When we get to the morgue, which, by the way, the security guard, I know why you're laughing. What was he doing on his breaks, Dan?
Cooking ham shank, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, he liked visiting the bathroom quite a lot, didn't he?
Quite a lot. And the director would just say, "Oh, it's just what he does," which made me look at him in a very different way. But when we get to the morgue, and yes, Paul, giving himself a treat, best way to put it.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, that throws off there. This is so weird having the chat here and everything. And no, can I just say, Chris has not made me laugh once because I'm not reading the chat very often. But I can see you all talking about it. What was I going to say? What was I saying? See, this is what I mean. Throwing me off. Well, we're on about. Oh yeah, the morgue scene. The morgue scene.
Yeah.
The morgue scene. So they're going into the morgue and they've got all these bodies. Why is there so many bodies in this morgue?
Because it's a shit hospital. They don't process their bodies very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Stuart Gordon took them all out to the LA morgue. All the actors for them to actually get a taste of what a morgue is like. Because from what I can gather, every now and again you hear Herbert say, I've been pushing bodies around all day. I've been pushing bodies around down to the morgue all day. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that's your job. What what part is, they're not very specific what kind of doctors these guys are.
No,
they're
not.
Are they morticians?
I felt like they were pathologists, to be honest. The especially the lesson that Dr. Hill's given when Herbert loses his shit. Oh my god, the pencil snapping scene done my head in. I'm like, I have a thing about authority, and I'm like, if he's teaching, let the fucker teach. Like, let him teach. Go to him at the end, but he's like, you won't open their minds, you're closing their minds. That scene gave me the heebie-jeebies, but it also gave my husband the heebie-jeebies because I was like, where's the bone saw? I was like, that's the only way we're getting in there.
I've written a note, right? Because I have this thing, you do with your eyes. You have that thing about eyes when they die, right?
Yeah.
Mine is bone saws.
Bone
saws do not cut flesh unless extreme, and it has to be immense pound, like weight is put behind it.
Yeah.
Bone saws, you can just have them vibrate on your hand and they do nothing. The teeth in it are not to cut flesh. They are to cut bone, and it's a totally different saw that they use. So when you see in horror films people going up to people with like a bone saw and doing damage, I'm like, that wouldn't happen. There's not enough applied pressure to cut through the skin pound for square inch, so that is one of my big bugbears. So when you see him with the bone saw, I was just like, oh, what?
And he's so gently, he's got it in one hand. A bone saw you would have two, and you have to put, because you're cracking bone, man. You're cracking it. But to go back, because that was another scene that we missed out, but to go to the morgue scene, this is where I'm heading to. The guy that they use to reanimate, which kind of like blows, like, Herbert's already established that there's the 12-minute gap.
Yeah, 6 to 12, I think he says.
Yeah,
that you have it, which is the best time to reanimate the corpse in.
Yeah, so he's already established that earlier on. When he gets to the morgue, he knows that guy's been dead longer because he would know how long it takes to get from death to the morgue. So he knows it's longer. He's just trying his fucking luck.
Yeah.
Do you know who that guy is?
Yes, I do.
Go on then.
Peter Kent, isn't it?
Peter Kent, it is. It's Arnie's stunt double.
Yeah, and it made a lot of sense actually when I rewatched that scene earlier, because you hear him making noises.
Yeah, this is when Ant's eyes looked up and went, "Where's Arnie?"
They are Arnie noises. And he does look exactly like Arnie from in Terminator. Yeah, when he lands naked in Terminator.
Yeah.
And he give me your boots and your bike or whatever it is he says. It's him that played it, and he still plays him up until this day, apparently.
Oh yeah.
He's still his stunt double.
Ant's eyes looked up and was like, "Where's Arnie?" And it's like, "Oh no, that's his that's his stunt double." He was great though. That whole scene, that was some comedy moments in there.
Yeah, when he jumped on the dad's banging on the door trying to get them out of the morgue because he knows they're up to something. Because at this point, the dean, who also happens to be Bab's dad, has chucked Dan out of the program and told him that he's not going to have his funding anymore. He's not going to be able to finish his
Oh, that was over the cat, wasn't it?
Yeah, because he basically Dan goes to the dean of the hospital and says
Fucking grass.
the school, yeah, basically saying Herbert's done it. He's reanimated an animal. It's amazing. We need to take him in. We need to do all this stuff. And the dean's like, no, that's disgusting. We're not having none of that here. Thank you very much. Stop with your nonsense and leave this course. You're done. So then the dean knows that they're downstairs in the morgue doing up to something, and he guesses as much that they're trying to reanimate a corpse. And old Babs is standing near the door like the door's on fire. Are you in there? Oh. And then the dad starts banging on the door, but then Arnie too smashes the door down and jumps on the door whilst the dad's underneath the door. That bit was like playing trampoline on it. I was like, my God.
It's so funny. The whole sequence itself is very slapstick. It's what I got from it, with like trying to calm him down. And then Herbert seeing a perfect opportunity. We've got a live one almost. And they bring Dean, Babs's dad, back from the dead. But it's not really him.
No.
Kinda.
But he's still, they do it in such an optimum amount of time that he's still got an element of his humanity.
Yeah.
And he's the only one. Would you say? I mean, yeah, I suppose.
Because it's weird because it's weird because at the beginning you don't feel like you do. I thought like when they bring them back, they're not bringing them back. It's like a different version of them. But that's not the case toward at the end. When he realizes what he's doing to his daughter.
Yeah, because there's a moment when they first turn him in this scene that he starts freaking out, and then as soon as he sees Babs in the door, he runs and hides in the corner like a little scared thing and puts his head down, doesn't he? And I saw an interview with the guy who played him, and he was saying this was my magnum opus. This movie, he said, this was for me. This was my my legacy. He said, and I loved every second about this film, but I wanted to play him with humanity, which was something that set him apart from the others. But he was just under Hill's spell, so he did what he was told, and it wasn't until he broke free from his spell that he realized at the end.
I wish they elaborated on that. I know they did it for time, but I really wish they elaborated on it, because it would have made the dean's death, like the dean's reactions, it would make more sense, because they did seem all over the place.
Yeah.
Until the end.
The original cut of the movie that was done, a rough cut was done by Stuart Gordon, of, I think they said it was about 146 minutes, the original film. Yeah. 146 minutes. Now that's a long ass film. Not really by today's standards, I suppose, because you do go into a Marvel movie and they're like 2.5 hours long, but they took it away and they had another guy come in with like green eyes on the whole thing, that they hadn't seen it, and they managed to cut it down to about 86 minutes in the end. So we've lost a lot of storyline that I think
it's a shame.
There's every possibility it was in there, basically the story that there was more humanity to the dad than they let on.
Yeah, it's a shame. Well, we soon realize that Dr. Hill is a dick.
Yes.
Massive dick.
Doesn't have one though. Well, he sort of does. It's not attached to his head.
Well, no, because nothing's attached to his head.
No.
Because
he's carried around like a handbag for the majority of it, isn't he?
Absolutely brilliant. But yeah, he gets custody of Babs's dad, and he's going to do all this work for him. Now, did he lobotomize him? Because that was his whole thing, was lobotomy with a laser.
Yeah, it looked like he had a burn mark or a bullet hole or a because trepanning is where they go in, they cut a hole in the skull and they go in that way. Lobotomy was always through the eye. So this is why I'm very confused of why he had a little bullet hole mark on his forehead. So unless this was this Dr. Hill's bloody specialist nonsensical thing that that pioneering treatment that he had. But yeah, and I don't think it worked anyway, because his brain was already
dead.
So putting him in a padded cell and then giving him a lobotomy, I don't think really did anything.
Oh, I don't think well, it didn't change him because who he was in the moment of the morgue is exactly who he is later on. He's just a
Yeah.
little bit more docile, probably a little bit more perceptive to Dr. Hill's ways and means.
Oh.
My brain has gone a little bit to mush now because I can't remember what happened after that bit with
He basically, this is where Herbert is, Herbert's down in the basement working on his
oh, that's right. Yes, that's right.
potions.
Yes, that's
And
right.
then Dr. Hill comes down to talk to him about stealing, well, tell him he's going to steal everything because he knows it works now.
And this is where Herbert gets his head.
Yes, with a shovel, no less. And the thing about this as well is that they had 3 or 4 different shovels, the special effects guys for this. They had the one that Herbert whacks him with is a rubber shovel. The one that they used to show him from the upshot, where they pan the camera up to Herbert with the shovel and he's cutting the head off. That's a real shovel, but they're aiming the shovel above David Gale's head.
Mm-hmm.
The third shovel is a normal shovel with the neck cut out. So when you see the shovel through the neck, it's the cut out and it's over his neck like that. And then I think they did say there was a fourth one, but I can't remember what that was. So,
to be honest, it looks like very basic makeup and trickery but it fucking works. The head in the tray really works.
Yeah, I mean, he knew. I think Herbert went in with the intention of reanimating Gale as a
whole. Yeah.
But then when he felt threatened, he panicked and cut his head off. And then he just had that weird little idea where he thought, I wonder what would happen
if.
And then he used it as like a research opportunity rather than thinking what would happen would happen.
Yeah. I don't think Herbert ever thinks to himself, this will get me out of trouble. It's always for the better of the research.
Yeah. Whereas for Hill, it was what he could gain from it, really.
Yeah, exactly. He could gain notoriety, the moolah, whereas Herbert is literally just doing it for the science.
Yeah.
And there's a god complex in there, in a way. It's
massively.
Yeah. It's definitely the Frankenstein effect, isn't it?
Yeah. So he's beheaded old Dr. Hill and he's put him in the tray, and then Dr. Hill's body, though, this is the bit where I got confused because he didn't inject his body. He injected his head, to my knowledge. I didn't see him inject the body. I could have gone right. I could have blinked and missed it, but I don't recall him injecting the body.
I want to say he did, but you know what I'm like? I don't know. I can't remember. This bit was a bit hazy to us.
Yeah, because then he can't, because the body then reanimates whilst the head's in the tray and smashes knocks Herbert out, basically.
Yeah.
So
takes Herbert and then takes Dan.
He goes.
No, the Dean does that.
Yeah, the guy goes to the doctor goes to his office, and he starts ransacking the office, and goes up to the window, which is this was something they did say in the film that I thought was really weird. And I will say thanks to Creature from the Black Tattoo for this, because he was around when I was watching this the first time. And do you think I could concentrate with Rob and Creature shouting boobs every 5 seconds? No. But he did say, did he just say that? So we had to rewind it. There's a section where the doctor turns around and says to Babs, it's a one-way mirror.
Yes.
Like, yeah, well, aren't all mirrors one way? They're two-way if you can see through both sides, but one way if you're looking at it. And he called him out on that, and I was just like, do you know what? I didn't even catch that, but yeah, and that's just stayed with me because it's like she because when he went and he was holding his head in front of the window, wasn't he? And then the crazy Dean comes up to the window and falls to his knees. And they do that really good shot where it looks like the head is on top of his body. It's really, really good shot.
It's
but that's
clever.
when he's hypnotizing him then, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There's some clever shots. Like I say, the you can tell it's very basic how it's being done, but it's still very effective, and especially the shots that they get from it, and especially later on with the scene. That scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that he then he sort of hypnotizes the dad into going and kidnapping his daughter, from what I can gather, in some weird way. So the Dean, the dad, goes out. They break him. He lets him out of the hospital padded cell, and then he goes off and he breaks the door down and grabs his daughter and brings her back to the morgue. And then the Dean does that thing where he uses the anatomy head off of his desk.
Oh shit, that was so funny.
That was
shit.
like, oh Lord, that I mean, 10 out of 10 points for realness. That looks so lifelike.
It's so they've got Barbara, haven't they?
Yes.
They take Barbara, and obviously the reveal of that head. Now I know I'm going to say this, and you're probably thinking, well, yeah, everyone does this, but them screams are all Barbara's screams. And I say that, and I made a point of that because not all horror actresses have the ability to scream in a way that is screen worthy. But Barbara is. They are all her genuine screams, and she brought some fucking corkers to them scenes.
Because you've got the most famous one, haven't you? And I've forgotten that it starts with a W, doesn't it? It's like
you said it before, the
Wilhelm scream or something like that. I've forgotten. And it's the one that they use the most. It's the most famous scream you'll ever hear because it's recycled so often. Because a lot of the actresses can't continuously scream as well. They after they get one or two good ones out, and then they're screwed because they lose their voice.
Yeah.
So, and like you say, others can't do it at all. So they have to have backups of people that do the scream, and then they do it in post production on the Foley stage where they record over and scream to the actresses moving their mouth.
It's not me trying to be like, oh, here's another fact, but it is a known thing that horror actresses can't. Most famous one is Psycho.
Janet Leigh.
Vivian. Oh, I want to say Vivian Leigh, but it's not.
No, Janet could do it, and the other one couldn't she?
Yes. It wasn't just Janet could do it. Janet's was better. That was the problem. Janet's screams were better, and it's hers that is used throughout the whole movie. I can't remember what Vivian's surname is. But the other actress alongside Janet Leigh in Psycho, I think she played a sister. She didn't. She could scream. It's just Janet's was better. But yeah, Janet's was used in them ones. So they are all genuine Barbara Compton screams, and they, like I said earlier, hilariously done.
She became known as one of the scream queens for her ability to be able to pull one out of the bag like that. And they could be like ear piercing, or they could be like petrified.
It's the reveal of the face, because she's already going, and then it comes out and she's like, what?
She knocks it flying off his shoulders after about 10 seconds after, doesn't she? And so this rubber bust that's sitting on top of this headless body ends up on the floor. Her dad at that point is this is where we're getting into something that I don't even know whether to do a trigger warning for this, because I don't really even know at this point. If you're watching this film, if you've seen this film, you know exactly what we're about to talk about. If you haven't seen it, you're in for a treat, kids, because this is a whole nother level of
we'll just throw a trigger warning out there. There's some
it's something. I don't even know what to define it as, because
but you've been warned.
Yeah, because
pretty much
this is something. Basically, this is the weird thing I don't get, right? They put her on the gurney. She's on the metal gurney. Her dad's managed to do one arm up and one leg up, but she's got one arm and one leg for free, that's not been tied, by a wrist strap or a restraint.
Because she's got it on his head.
And then her dad rips off all of her clothes because at this point her dad's not her dad. He's possessed or hypnotized by the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So he's ripped off all of her clothes. And this is what Barbara Crampton is most known for. This scene, the fact that she didn't ask for extra money, she didn't ask for anything for this, except for a quiet set when they filmed this. So at the very beginning, when she did her first boob shot and the sex scene with Dan, there was 50 people on set when she did that.
Fuck.
For this
one,
there was minimal. There was like cameramen, director,
just who was needed.
Like, so that she said, I think there was about 10 people in the end, literally, and then the actors. And she said, I just thought, right, well, I'm going to give this as much as I've given it every other scene in this, and this is what this calls for. That's what it says in the script. So I can either put my foot down and say I'm not doing it and then lose my job, or I can sit back and think, okay, is this going to benefit me in any way? Is it benefiting the script? Does it make sense? And to her, it made sense with it being in its place and what it did. She said at the time, I just thought it was a lot, but she said I didn't realize it would have the connotations and the controversy and the it did. So,
but it to be honest, in the actual plot itself, he was obsessed with her.
Oh yeah.
So this does make sense in a way. Probably not as graphic as what we were expecting. I mean, my husband's eyes were firmly on the fucking telly as we were watching it.
Them two were painting Warhammer, right? And they both stopped, they both turned around, and they were both watching the telly. Now, it doesn't happen very often. So.
No, Anth was on his phone and he just went, "Is it? Yep." And just leaned in and watched it. But this is the scene that got him a divorce. And it does stop before it gets way nasty, but it was known as a grape scene.
Yes.
But I don't know, because of how horror has, done going forward, this is quite tame.
It's tame to a degree. I think it's perfectly tame and there's a bit in it, and I'm going to say it, so I don't care if people feel uncomfortable or not, because I don't, but basically the head is held by his own body over Barbara, and he says, I've always loved you, in a really creepy, like throaty, which, because he hasn't got a throat, is weird, but it's really throaty voice, and he's covered in claret, he's got blood all over his face, and it's the bit where he licks her nipple. To me, that the rest of it, like, okay, you know the intention, but you don't really. You can disassociate to a degree. It was the bit when he did that, and I thought, oh, I hope he asked her if it was okay that he did that. And I was like, oh God,
that is just the one bit that's kind of like, oh,
that's I don't know why I feel like that was going too far, but it unless they had that conversation, which I hope they did beforehand, because it seems like everybody that spoke about Dave Gale said he was a gentleman and he was really lovely. So I'm kind of hoping that they did have the conversation to say, right, okay, how far do we take this? How do we,
there must have been, because if she was willing to, in one respect, walk away from this scene, she would have laid some stipulations down.
Well, the first actress did, didn't she? Barbara was actually the second one cast in this role, because the mum of the girl that originally got the part, Blanket told her she couldn't do the role. She turned, her mum made her turn the role down because of this scene.
And if he hadn't done that, it wouldn't have. I don't feel it would have had the same kind of effect as, because it is just alluding to the fact that something is going to happen. But because he does that, it has happened. But yeah, it comes to a quick stop very quickly before anything gets a bit carried away.
Well, he gets to the point of where he's hovering over a certain body part, and he's going in for the kill. And then thank God for Herbert, And he's like, the way that Herbert stops it though, I think is pretty genius, because he doesn't burst through the doors and go,
No.
"You disgusting." Ugh. It's all like, "And you thought I wouldn't catch you doing something stupid." It's like it was a very level-headed lecture he was giving Dr. Hill, considering he's seen a severed head being held by its own body over Barbara Crampton's bush.
She's
butt naked on the bed. I'm like, what the fucking hell's going on here?
He acts like this is fucking a Tuesday for him. Like, this is just normal. But he does say my favorite line in the movie: "Who's going to believe a talking head? Get a job in a sideshow."
I've written that one down as well.
I fucking love that line. It's his delivery of "get a job in a sideshow."
He's quite sassy, Herbert, though, isn't he? Like,
very.
When you look back at, now we know it, with drag queens and everything, reading and things like that, it is what?
It's fundamental.
But reading is an art form.
Oh,
and I feel like Herbert, he has an element of being able to pull out a one-liner and be deadpan about it at the same time, and that there's just an art to being written.
I totally agree. I never realized. I mean, obviously, we've heard reading in Drag Race, in RuPaul's Drag Race, but the art of reading comes from the ball scenes in the 80s, and it's showcased beautifully in Paris is Burning.
Yeah.
You have to have an acid tongue to be able to take on someone who can read you the house down boots.
Mm-hmm.
Can't believe I just said that. Yeah. And I feel like he could definitely he's just got such a wit to him, and it's so dry and it's so perfectly delivered. Like, that line, he's almost impressed / angry.
Yeah. I think he feels like, how has Dr. Hill managed to bring himself to this level of awareness, considering he is a corpse, and he's the first corpse that's been able to talk as well. But I think the difference between the Dean, Babs's dad, and the doctor is that the doctor's ego is the thing that's carried him on, been able to make him speak, been able to make him be as he has an objective in his head, which is to get Babs. That's his objective.
Yeah.
And then take the credit for everything else once he's got Babs.
In his spare time, he's managed to reanimate quite a lot of he called them zombies, and I kind of get where he was coming from with it, because it was almost a zombie effect, the way that they were acting. There was no other way to describe that. These reanimated corpses.
And because they were older corpses as well, they weren't particularly, they were just easy to just he's like a puppet master, for want of a better word, the doctor. And all the corpses were his puppets, and he was trying to get them to attack Dan, attack Herbert, but not harm Babs, I think.
I think she was the one who was to be left out. There's a hell of a fight scene occurs between the reanimated corpses and Dan and Herbert. And the scene that still blows my mind is the chest buster. The intestine buster. Like, I don't know how to describe that.
I saw this, how they did it. They were behind the wall. And obviously they'd lined the body up, the headless body up against the wall, and they'd done like a CO2 push through the chest, and they wanted it to open up, and it didn't quite go as planned, but they didn't have any money left to reshoot that. So that's why it was the way it was. They were expecting bigger and grander and more.
Right.
But they'd fired this is where they went back to the ground meat and the offal and bits of rubber, and they'd covered it all in the gunk and blood, and they were expecting this big woof, and it just went they said there was so much blood their feet were sticking to the floor.
There was a lot of blood in this scene,
so they couldn't keep reshooting, so they had to get them on the first takes as well, because it got to that point.
The makeup in this gave me a lot of Dawn of the Dead, Savini, blue skin, grey skin, green skin, realness, because it's almost like they didn't know what color to go with.
Yeah. I will say they the special effects guy, his name was John Newland. And
I had to break it down, so I made sure I said it right.
the gist of the matter was they had no budget when they went into this film. They had a very, very slim amount of budget. And when they sat down and broke it down, there was 89 scenes that had special effects in this whole movie. 89 scenes.
Wow.
And the special effects guys were like, wow, there's just like one of me. I need to hire someone else. So they hired two special effects guys. The other one was Anthony, I want to say Dublin, but it could be Devlin because I can't read my own writing. And then they are teachers at a local film school in special effects. They then recruited all the kids that were in their classes to become and work on this movie, to be crew. So that's why some of them are rudimentary, because they are just kids starting out and learning how to do this stuff. And then they realized, right, shit, this is still too much. We can't handle all of this. They then went to John Beschler, who had a well-established FX company. He wasn't like super duper well known, but he'd done enough to be able to help them out in the meantime. And he helped them with like shooting the right angles for the headless body, shooting the chest bursting scene, things like that. He helped them with the more complicated special effects teams, special effects scenes and things like that. So they said their biggest expense, other than the blood, was the meat market.
Right.
Their bill for the offal was one of the second biggest expense for the special effects. Could you imagine?
Fucking horrible word.
The smell.
Nah, no thanking you. The scene is pretty spectacular, but there's a lot going on. You've got Herbert fighting Dr. Hill, where then Herbert gets taken away to,
we don't know
the where. I don't know. He's
he
gone.
He's smoke. Yeah.
I felt like he went into his stomach, to be fair. I was like, where is he going? But Herbert's gone. Dan and Barbara, I can't remember Barbara's name. I can't remember. Meg.
I think yeah. Shut up, Meg. I'm pretty sure. Shut up,
sorry. You know the Family Guy scene where they're doing the superpowers and they're all revealing them, and Meg goes, it's like a little claw nails. That's what I do when I've got me falsies on. I'm like, I'm Meg.
I can't speak Ukrainian, otherwise I'd do have a double that's posing as her for her entire life.
I amuse myself. But yeah, you've got Dan and Barbara who are fighting the reanimated corpses, and then Daddy decides to step up and be a dad
because she screams, "Help me, Dad!" and he snaps out of the Dr. Hill hypnosis thing, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's and now my mind's gone blank again. Because Barbara something happens to Barbara.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what.
Yeah, right. So the dad then defends Barbara, and he gets pulled apart by all the other guys. So his arms, his legs, and his head all get pulled off, but you don't see it. You only see it in shadow. So they did a really good choice there, because obviously they didn't have to fixate. They didn't have to worry too much about the special effects looking like the dad. It was just like a dummy with Velcro arms and legs that got ripped off. So Dan and Barbara then run to the lift, and they have a guy that comes to the lift that's the burn victim. Half of him's burnt.
Yes.
And reaches in the lift, and he goes to strangle Barbara. But he was actually, in real life, the guy was an amputee, the guy who played him.
Right.
So when Dan ran off to get the axe to cut off the arm, Dan comes running in, cuts the arm off, and because he's an amputee, obviously it doesn't matter. The arm stays around Babs's throat, and then it chokes and kills Barbara. But you see the arm on the floor, and the arm on the floor is actually one of the special effects guys with his arm up through the floor. like making it
Yeah.
move and pretending, because animatronics in 85,
It
unless
wasn't
you had the budget. Yeah,
no, it wasn't the greatest. The animatronics took. I learned this when we did Turtles
yeah,
for Nerdy Up North. Jim Henson is responsible, no, not responsible, but he helped move along the technology of animatronics, and that was what in the 90s. So, when I mentioned the word animatronics earlier, I wasn't sure because I generally wasn't sure if it was puppetry or not, but of course it would have been puppetry, especially with a cat. Had to have been. There's no way you couldn't have done it any other way, especially the way it looked.
yeah. But then Babs is dead.
Yeah, and it's such a sad moment actually because it's a moment that's already been told.
Mm.
Dan at the beginning he's an overly keen student doctor who wants to go the extra mile to save people. And at the beginning of the movie, it shows you that to where his teacher has to say you have to know when to walk away.
Yeah.
And I don't even think she gets them out to where she just puts. She was so good actually. I liked her. She kind of like puts a hand on his shoulder and is like, that's it.
That's Stuart Gordon's real life wife.
Really, I
Like that,
really
yeah.
liked her.
They owned the theatre company together that they were at in Chicago
Hmm.
when he got the job to do Re-Animator, and he was still going backwards and forwards between doing the directing and then going back and then doing editing, coming back to LA and doing that. And then he got off the back of this movie, Stuart and his wife got Dolls, and they got I think it's called From Beyond, the other H.P. Lovecraft adaptation that Jeff was in. But yeah, him and his wife were in this movie. Well, she was in the movie, he was directing it. But yeah, it gets to the point where Dan's giving it everything he's got to try and bring Babs back. And it dawns on him that he stole the suitcase with all Herbert's magic reagent in it.
Magic stuff.
Do you know what that is? The special effects guys use glow stick, the stuff from inside glow sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used 900 glow sticks in the whole making of the film. They said they couldn't get it on their hands. It was like a acidy, like really bad stuff. But they said it did the trick.
The fucker glows, man. Like I wouldn't want to touch it either.
That wasn't touched up by any magic on the computer. That was glow stick juice after it had been snapped. So it looked.
It's a beautiful color green. Like I love it. I love it.
And in in our lovely little square we got here.
Round us. Yeah, so I loved her performance because she looked like she gave a genuine emotion at the end. And it was that it's always like that form of contact where it's only ever so slight, but it's like it's so meaningful, and she pulled it off perfectly. But what really got me about the end scene, why didn't the security guards not question what the fuck was going on in there?
He was too busy in the toilet.
Nobody questioned what the doctors who had Barbara.
No,
nobody questioned. Why is she naked? Why is she covered in so much blood? No questions were asked. No questions were asked.
No. I mean, going back quickly, the demise of Dr. Hill was Barbara's dad. Mm-hmm. He grabbed Dr. Hill's head and he squeezed it until it
that looks satisfying.
He threw it against the wall, and all that was hamburger meat. That was it.
It looked really satisfying, especially when I'm not a person about eyes, but when the eyes came out, I was like, "Oh, go on, son!" Like it looked very satisfying.
Yeah, and what they'd done was they ground up some hamburger meat with sawdust because what they wanted it to do was, when he threw it and it hit the wall. Yeah. They wanted it to like splat and they got the exact desire that they wanted when they managed to do that. So they were really, really chuffed with that because it was the most expensive meat of the whole show. Because it was decent stuff compared to
I bet you could only do that in one take as well. It's not like you could keep making bloody burger heads.
Oh, but yeah. the majority of the film, every scene was done in one take that had huge special effects. So I mean that in itself is an undertaking, considering 18 days of filming. The last day they said was about 18 hours of filming in total, and the last day was the last shot you see with all the fights and the reanimated corpses, and that whole scene was shot on the very last day. So it was a hell of a long day for all of them involved, I think.
That is a lot. But I watched this a few years ago, and I fell in love. I watched this and Frankenhooker on the same day. Yes, guys, that is a real movie of a real title of a movie. Frankenhooker. Fucking love it. It's absolutely great. But I watched them two at the same time, and I must admit, my attention span was quite like it was flailing a little bit during this movie. But when I watched it the other night, I thought I knew what I was in for, and it totally it just the minute I read horror comedy, I was like, oh fuck yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Like this is fucking hilarious, and it's meant to be hilarious. I'm not meant to be laughing at it. I'm meant to be laughing with it.
Yeah. In They made a major decision with this movie where they didn't take it to the certification board in America. They released it unrated, which is very, very rare to do in the US. Because the guys, Stuart Gordon and I've forgotten his surname, but his name's Paul, the other guy, the guy that funded it. He funded it personally, this movie. So they weren't beholden to a studio or anything like that. And they made the decision to go unrated so that they could keep in what we see now. Because if the studio had their hands on it, the film would be 20 minutes long and there'd be nothing of it, because you would not have the scenes that we've talked about in a movie in 1985. Just wouldn't have happened. So I mean, in saying that, we all know The Exorcist happened and those scenes happened, but that was a massive budget. That was a huge, you're talking about a massive studio that took a risk on that one. But this, they weren't beholden to anyone. So in any way you look at it, it's an indie movie. It's made off a very, very small budget, but they took it to Cannes Movie Festival in France, because they wanted to test the waters with it before they did a soft release in the US in the cinemas. And it won loads of awards at Cannes. It got, I think the biggest award it won was the Critics' Choice Award, which is a hell of an award to win at Cannes, considering how many movies go to Cannes every year. And then it got a soft release in the US off the back of all the awards it won. And they went to the premiere, but they didn't make it a premiere. They just went to the first showing in the Paramount Theatre. I think they said it was across the road from the Man's Grauman Chinese.
It is, it's there or thereabout.
Yeah. And they went, and apparently everybody was really vocal during the movie, like, oh my God, what's it doing? Having proper. And I've been to a cinema in America, and I can confirm.
Oh yeah, that's what they
do that.
I've seen a fair few movies in America. I saw Journey to Atlantis, Austin Powers 2, Mulan. Saw Mulan there, and they react, they cheer, and at the end of the movie, they applaud.
I went to see The Expendables, right? And they clapped before it even started, and I was like, "This is real."
They clap for the projector. It's the fact that it's the projector. They clap for that, and they clap at the end because of the movie finished and it ended. And I love that. When we went to when Endgame happened and I saw all these reactions, I was like, oh, fuck man, I wish I was there. I would never be angry at that.
But that happened in my cinema in the UK when Endgame.
Really?
Yeah, everybody went absolutely crazy at that point. They do the shot where you got Captain America and you got Thanos.
Yeah.
He tightens up his shield and he's getting ready to go in for it. And you hear, coming in on your right, Falcon's on in his ear, and all of a sudden
on your left.
That's it. You see all the, look, it's been a while. And then you see the little like portals come open and everybody walks through, and the gasps in the audience and the all of a sudden, like when they all started coming out and everybody was cheering in the cinema. And
I would have done anything for that. Poor Carolyn had to put Carolyn, my best friend, we used to go to the pictures all the time, pre-lockdown, and obviously when there was a lot of decent movies coming out. And my reaction, because that's all I want to do, is scream and shout and like,
Yeah.
get in. I punch her in the leg. That poor girl, and she doesn't react. She knows what's coming. I go,
Yeah.
get the fuck in her, start punching her in the side of the leg. And it wasn't until we saw Spider-Man, the last one with Doctor Strange and all of them in,
Yeah.
and there was a young girl sat by herself in the middle of the cinema, and she awed and she oohed and she cheered. And when Andrew Garfield came, she was out of her chair, and I cried for her. I was so happy for I was so happy for her. I don't have
See?
any more on Re-Animator, by the way.
Well, people think I'm a horror nerd. I do love me Marvel too.
She does. Hey,
Yeah.
she likes a fantasy. She likes
There's a
like Star
wealth of
Wars.
knowledge up here. I just can't remember birthdays or phone numbers. So I've got a few more bits, but
Yeah.
nothing
No, go on.
great. The very opening titles to this movie, Stuart Gordon wanted bright, he wanted neon, he wanted something that hadn't been seen before, but not in the 80s way that's tacky neon. He wanted this like slam in your face. And so they hired this guy called Bob Dawson to do the opening credits. And it turns out that Bob Dawson now is Tim Burton's go-to guy for all of his movies at the beginnings. So everything you see,
Get that.
yeah, everything you see at the beginning of this movie is animated or storyboard, you know, or all the artwork is done by Bob Dawson. So
Yeah, it's beautiful. That green is spectacular.
really, really is.
I've told you, if I can get that color in paint, it's getting on this. It's getting on here. I know it's on your nail, man. No, I've got red nails to do.
Yeah, I don't think I've got much else. I've got to be honest. I've written down so much stuff, but it's like I think we've covered it all.
So yeah, I couldn't do what you do. I've like got it all like laid out.
It was banned in Germany and Australia. I do know that because it is one of the video nasties. It's a banned movie.
Someone did ask in the chat earlier if it was banned,
Yeah.
and I generally didn't know, hence the reason why I didn't answer it straight away.
I know it was a video nasties in the UK, but I don't know if it got an official ban. Being unrated in the US, I doubt it would have got a rating here.
No.
I remember watching it when I was about 14. We went round. My friend Sam was dating this boy called Dean, and we went round his house, and we were all sat there watching Re-Animator. And I just remember thinking it was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen.
And you would have at that time because you wouldn't have gotten any of the likelihood is you probably didn't get any of the jokes. You were just looking at shapes and figures and waiting for blood, guts, and gore. It's not until you get old. I feel like you have to be mature to watch this and get the jokes, get the funny. Paul did ask earlier how you would feel about a reboot remake of.
Right, I've just remembered there was one in the works. In 2009, they were talking about doing a Re-Animator TV series and making it hour-long episodes and having a kiddie. When I say kiddie, I mean 30-year-olds playing 15-year-olds kind of
like Grease
lineup, yeah. And then it was coming off the back of Buffy finishing because Buffy finished 2007-ish. So yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer finished around about then. It might have been a little bit earlier than that, but it was around about then. So 2009, they wanted to continue something in the Joss Whedon weird verse kind of teenager angsty shit, but they were going to make Herbert like that. And they were going to. People had nicknamed the remake Re-Animator 90210.
No,
because they said it was going to be that cheesy.
Oh no!
But it got scrapped pretty quickly. They cast everybody. They did all the promo photos, but then there was never an initial one that went out. You know, like they do their test.
Yeah,
I've gone blank on the name of it, but they do their first episode that goes out. That's the one to test the waters with, but they never got as far as making it. It didn't get past R&R and all that sort of.
Thank God for that. I'm not one for this to be remade, rebooted, redone. I feel like it has a place in 80s horror, especially in 80s horror comedy, because I feel like it came. I can't remember when Frankenhooker came out, but it feels like it was around about the same
86,
time.
87, yeah, I want to say
Yeah.
then.
And it's just there is a place for it. And I feel like if it was done now, it'd be too serious. Like that end scene would hit very differently.
There'd be score, like orchestral scoring, and it'd just be too much. This isn't.
Yeah.
It works being the way it is. Like when we were talking to Neil Marshall, go back and watch that episode. Obviously, not yet.
yeah.
We finished. But Neil, you were talking to Neil about purposefully not scoring certain parts
Yeah.
of movies and how Dog Soldiers wasn't scored for a certain reason, and it has that same vibe that the initial opening credits music is the only music that's used throughout the entire film, but it's only used very small, like tiny little bits, and it's not really used that often. So
No.
the lack of score does build a certain kind of atmosphere with it. So
I just feel like it'd be serious. There would be, don't get us wrong, I believe there would be a lot of great makeup that came out of it. But I have a soft spot for a bit of 80s throwback makeup.
You gotta have it. You got to start. This is the thing. If we didn't have bad Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead makeup, purple zombies, grey zombies, if we didn't have the makeup we had in this, we wouldn't have what we have today, because people can't progress through to get to where they need to go. So
exactly,
these movies paved the way for the
paved
practical effects we have now, not your CGIs, but your practical effects you have now.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, I feel like that's all I've got for Re-Animator.
I was going to ask in the comments if anyone
go for
had
it.
any questions.
I keep forgetting they're there.
To be honest with you, if I'm to ask that, it will probably just be Lee and Chris asking stupid questions. So yes, Lee and Chris, I know.
I'm going to give you them their dues.
Right.
They have fucking tried to grab our attention throughout this whole episode.
Yeah, I've been ignoring
I am going to be intrigued to see what the Discord looks like after we're done, because I know that some photoshopping has been going on as we have been doing it.
Well, I'll be grateful I'm not in it.
So yeah, I'm gonna the goth jokes were coming out earlier, how to see if they could break us and make us laugh. So I'm going to doff my cap to you all for at least trying. You guys are so professional. Well done. Thanks, Lee.
Do you have any questions that are related to this podcast theme?
Yeah. Any horror related questions? You've got a few seconds before I start wrapping it up.
Yes.
Oh, I know there's a delay, so we're going to have to
Yeah, Chris, a smiley face isn't a question.
They did so well, but hang on a minute. They did so well, but you are better. What now? Would you say Re-Animator was a monster? There's monster aspects in it, absolutely. Herbert's main idea in the first place of bringing people back, that is monster-ish.
It's playing God with people, you know. You're telling me you would consent to being brought back once you died? No way, Pedro. Just set me on fire and stick me in a cookie jar. I'm happy.
I'm doing a whole if I manage to outlive Dan, doing a whole Viking thing for her. She's getting the works, arrows and all. Just so I can set you on fire. I'm only joking.
No, I'm genuinely going in a cookie jar. We've got it downstairs. But yeah, it's a ghost one. It is literally a boo ghost, and it's a cookie jar, and you pop his head off, and that's where I'm going when I'm done.
Sorry. I'm sorry, Becca. Becca was referring to the fact that they were trying to make us laugh. I'm sorry. No, but there is monsterish elements to this. It's the human side of, the monster, the human monster, as opposed to the actual physical looking monster.
If we could reanimate a non-fan member, who would it be?
Oh.
I don't know who's a member and who's not, because I'm not in with the kids, down with the kids.
Okay.
Chris, you have to elaborate.
If you could reanimate a non-fam member, who would it be? Are you referring to a non-family member, so anybody?
Yeah, we don't talking like mum and dad or brother and sister. Are we talking
if you could reanimate me or Chris, who would you bring back? Fuck, Lee, that's a hard one.
I'm impartial on this one because you both photoshopped the shit out of me on stuff. So I'm gonna claim Switzerland on that question.
If you could change the goo color, what shade of black would it be, Sammy?
Dark black.
You fucking like a neon, like matte black, like whoa, like it had to really stand out.
It had two sequels and the original, Paul, in answer to your question. It had the original Bride and then Re-Animator, Bride of Re-Animator, and then Beyond Re-Animator.
But Mike Kell told me that's very good. That it's a good movie, that it actually kind of works.
Oh, I don't know. 2005, so you having a whole nother level of
a lot's gone on.
Special effects and things that you wouldn't have had in the first ones. I suppose I should really just swallow my distaste and just go and give it a go. But yeah, I'll get there one day.
Yeah, Mike did it. Mike mentioned it on a post, and I think he did it for one of his reviews as well. And he had nothing but nice things to say about it. He had nothing nice to say about Re-Animator as well. Is a non-family member so a celeb or something? So who we okay, like all right. Well,
they're not going to be the same person, are they? So it doesn't matter, but
go on.
I was going to say Christopher Reeve.
Oh, wow.
My almost dad.
You're almost dad.
Yeah, my almost dad.
That was discovered very early on in the podcast.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was when I was guesting on the episode, the special we did.
I don't even think it was this one either.
No, I think it was the special you guys had me on Nerdy. And
I feel like it was.
Yeah. And he really was. So some of these guys don't even know the story, so I'll keep it short. Christopher Reeve proposed to my mum when she worked at a hotel as a cocktail waitress. Yes, sing the song. And asked her to marry him. She thought he was messing around. I was already born at that point. And she laughed it off, and he wasn't. And
yeah,
we don't like horses. We don't like horses, so I think he still would be okay to this day if that had happened. But so
I love that story. It's one I absolutely love it. It would be a toss up between Claude Rains, Claude Rains, Una O'Connor, or my favorite, and probably my realistic answer would be Vincent Price. I just want to hear that man one more time.
In the back of my head, I'm going to say Robin Williams as well. So I want to add Robin Williams into the mix there. But Chris, come on, Christopher Reeve, name rings a bell. Chris.
How dare you hand your nerd card in at the door on the way out? How do you guys feel knowing you've been in the Monster Squad for a whole year? Well. Well,
it's been a year of hard work, and people don't see the stuff that we do behind the scenes. Bearing in mind, I only do one of these. Sammy does 5 a week, 12 a week. I don't know how many we do on Nerdy these days.
It's a bit of an exaggeration, but I do a lot. So I have but I feel like I've got my routine down. Like I know I've got a couple of extra stuff coming up in the pipe work with other things on the Nerdy Up North podcast, but when it comes to monsters, I have such a routine now. Like even Anth knows it. Yeah. Like he knows. Like tonight would have been very different because I would have been watching this chat, and then it would be like, right, what's this week? Okay, you best get a watching. You best get your notepad out. Yeah. So I do have a routine now, and I must say the choices we've made for season 2 have been some of my favorite choices, and probably would never have been my first choice.
Yeah.
But I have loved them, and I think it all changed when we did. And I hate coming back to this because I do every time. The Blob.
Yeah,
really turned me on my head. That one.
I was talking to Neil from the Monopoly guys that most people for the Love of Horror. I was speaking to Neil about that because he was talking about Shawnee Smith coming over because she's coming over for the Love of Horror.
Brilliant.
And I was saying to him, for me, it was like the realization that Shawnee Smith was in The Blob, the realization that they'd remade such an amazing film, and from there I knew we were on the right track.
Yeah,
everything clicked into place when we did the Blob episode, and it was just like, we can do these random things, and we can watch films that we've never seen before, or we haven't seen since we were teeny.
Or we would kind of turn our noses up at.
Yeah, and then we can still do that, but at least
Mhm.
if we watch it, we can then
Yeah.
genuine opinion, and that's all this is. This is just two people's opinions. You don't have to agree with us. That's
Mhm.
perfectly fine. That's your prerogative. But I'm enjoying being an
Yeah.
opinionated old get and getting to have a bit of a
Yeah.
platform to say stuff and
Me too.
because you can't have an opinion normally, can you? You have
No,
to be very.
no. And I feel like we've got such a, I don't know, like it, I feel like with season one, it was like, yeah, let's get all the known ones, like what everything, like what horror is associated with. And then in season two, I know we started with Dracula, but obviously we did that. It kind of was a little bit by design, but not really. I feel like it was Chris who pointed it out to us that we started with a big universal monster with a creature, and then
Yeah,
season two started with another one. And I feel like it wasn't by design, but it kind of like worked out. Like tonight worked out the way that it did. It all just
yeah,
kind of falls into place. But after we did that one, we really wanted to, uh, me especially, wanted to kind of push away from the norm.
yeah.
Horror is fucking huge. It's massive. And it's not just your slashers and your Michaels and your Jasons and your Freddys. And now, if you notice, we've not done Freddy yet.
Yes, there'll be a time and a place, but we'll get
But it
there.
isn't right now.
No, because there's this thing. If you look at when you put in horror into YouTube,
Mhm.
you'll get your Freddies. There's 1,000,000,000 Freddy vlogs. There's 1,000,000,000 YouTubes of Michael and all the big hitters. But you really have to look for the other stuff. And whilst that might make us a bit niche, it also sets us apart from everybody else because
Yeah.
we're choosing movies that aren't necessarily the most popular, but hopefully we can inspire people to go out and give it a
Yeah.
watch and just enjoy the bigger picture than the big blockbusters. Whilst they
Yeah.
have their place, if it wasn't for these other films, we wouldn't have what we have today. So
Exactly. And I've loved every one that we've done in season two. But my favorite episode by far, please either go and listen to it on Spotify or iTunes or watch it on YouTube, will always be Pet Cemetery.
yeah, yeah. Mine is the Blob, Pet Cemetery.
Blob's very, very close by to it. But for some reason, something it was because it was one of those conversations where I needed to figure out how I felt about something.
Yeah,
And I did it on the podcast.
yeah.
And I loved every minute of it.
I think
Realizing Bloodlines is a good film in that moment.
I think for me as well, doing the Neil Marshall interview, whilst we've had lots of
Yeah.
people on, we've had Mike Kell on, we've had Creature
Yeah.
from the Black Tattoo, we've had Peaches and Scream on, we've had
We've had our very own Jake, Jessica,
Paul, Jess,
Graham, Paul.
so many of you guys who've helped get us going
Build us.
and
Yeah.
get us into where we are now. But my favorite has to be with Neil, I think, for
Yeah.
interviews, and that's not taken apart from you guys because you've all been great.
Mhm.
But with Neil, you were getting an inside
Yeah.
eye and a look at things that he brought up things that I would never have known as a layperson that's never worked on a active set. He talked about how he shot the Game of Thrones episodes. He talked about how where they were filming when they were scouting for venues for when they filmed Doomsday. He was talking about like actors and all that. It's a whole nother level of things that when I go and work my shows at Bleeding Marvelous,
Yeah.
I don't get away from the stand that often, so I can't go and sit and watch talks and
Yeah.
watch these things. So when these guys are at these shows, I don't get that insider knowledge from there. So
Mhm.
it was just so lovely to be able to sit and have a genuine
Refreshing.
conversation,
Yeah.
and it didn't feel forced, and he didn't make me feel uncomfortable or nervous
No.
or anything like that. So
No, I made a right show of myself when he first came on camera. I'm not gonna lie, because I just turned around and went, "Oh, Neil Marshall, you've been in my head for a week. Stop talking, Sam. Stop doing that. Don't do that." It was lovely, and I think he was taken aback by your knowledge on the shooting of Game of Thrones, because you were like, "So whose idea was it for the one shot going around?" And he was like, amazing. Let's get into that."
Well, well, I think it was because I watched that episode the night before.
Yeah.
And I made sure, I thought, if I'm going to go in, I've literally watched every Game of Thrones episodes but once. I've only watched it through once. So I thought, right, I've got to go back and watch at least one of those 2 episodes. Which one do I want? And you said the other one was your special.
It was.
You know, you loved that one,
I
the
love
Battle
it.
of Blackwater. But I thought, right, I'll go and watch the Watchers on the Wall, I think
Yeah.
it was called. So I'll watch that one. And as soon as I started watching it, I was like, I know this episode. I remember this episode. And it was just, it all come back. And I was just taking everything in like a sponge. I thought, because I'm not going to embarrass myself. I'm not coming into this with no knowledge. But I think I made his day when I said he created a universal monster. So I think...
Yeah.
We
Sorry, not we. I'm not taking any fucking credit for that. This lady right here, she penned a universal monster right here and there on the Monsters Up North podcast. She did it. You're
I
there.
do think...
Where are you? Where are you? You're there. There.
Other side.
There.
Yeah.
Other side. Fuck's sake, man. It's easier when you're next to us.
Yeah, because if anybody didn't see it, I was referring to Doomsday. The big bad in Doomsday is Soul, and the film was distributed by Universal. Therefore, does that make Soul a universal monster? And that was the question I asked Neil, and Neil was like, his face lit up because without any prompting from us, Neil turned around and said that the first films that he'd ever seen was like Frankenstein when he watched it on the telly.
Yeah.
And that was the same conversation I had with Mike Kell, believe it or not, at Newcastle Con a couple of weeks before we interviewed him, or the week before we interviewed him.
It was the week
and
before.
Mike said exactly the same thing to me. The first ever horror film he saw, but I think you said Frankenstein. So quote me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, Mike. But I'm pretty sure
and Mike will
Frankenstein as well. So that was in the back of my head, and I just thought we hadn't brought up about any Universal monsters whatsoever.
No.
And his first offering, bang out the gate, was Universal monsters, and I thought, right, yeah, this is going to work.
This is going to work, and it really, really did. It was so much fun. It's kind of made us feel okay. We can do this.
Yeah,
we could take this further. Like that was easy.
And the beauty of that episode, it's led to a lot of opportunities moving forward for you guys to be seeing some very familiar faces.
So to answer your question, Dave, what upcoming episodes are we most looking forward to making? We can't tell you.
No.
But I tell you what, we can tell you what next week's episode is going to be.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a bit of behind the scenes as well of how me and Dan decide on what episodes we're going to do. So we picked 2. One that she knew I liked, one she knew she liked. This 50p piece was the decision breaker on which one went first.
Yep.
That's how we do it here. That we don't have wheels, we don't have other we're literally using 50p pieces.
It's fair. It's fair.
It was fair. There was 2 episodes laid out. We both agreed on them, and the 50p piece decided which one went first. So next week's episode is one of my favorites. We are doing Event Horizon.
Horror.
It's going to be I am so looking forward to this. I used to watch this so many times back in the day. Like, I was obsessed with this movie, and it has been some time. A lot has happened in the time between me watching it to now. So I am very much looking forward to watching it, delving into it, getting all sci-fi, horror-y, Sam Neill, blah. I'm just thinking of certain scenes, and that's all I can think.
Yeah, blah.
Yeah. So next week is Event Horizon, and can't thank you all enough from the bottom of our spooky little hearts that you join us every Monday at now our new time of 8:00. It's an honor. It really is. Like, it's such a privilege to be able to do this and to have so much fun with you guys on a Monday night, and we've been able to do it live. I will, like I said, doff my hat off to you for trying throughout the night to get us to laugh, but I am professional here. I've got Dan. professional stone face Dan. So yes, thank you so much. if you feel inclined to revisit any of our prior episodes from season 2 and season 1, they are all available on YouTube. They are also available for your listening pleasure on Spotify and iTunes. You can find all of the links for Bleeding Marvelous, Nerdy Up North, Monsters Up North, down there. And also Dan's mother-in-law's link's still up there. It's up there every week. I never take
Kerry.
it off.
You're welcome. She's probably getting unsolicited messages.
I know I didn't take it off. I literally just kept it on. So yes. Have we got anything else to say?
We are also now on Audible.
We've been on Audible the whole time.
I only found this out last week, though.
Yeah,
this is the thing. It's new information to me.
To be honest, we're anywhere you get your podcast from.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a nightmare trying to say we're on audio and we're everywhere.
That sounds really ominous.
Doesn't it? We're everywhere. So yes, thanks guys for watching us. Thanks guys for keeping us going for a whole entire year. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved every second of it, and long may it continue. And my God, do we have a lot more coming over the next God knows how long. How long you'll have us for?
Yes, that.
Well, if there's nothing else to say goodbye, Dan.
See you, pals.
Stay spooky, everyone. Bye.